Well, hello, that's me again. Today is June 10th, 2025. It is Tuesday. And apart from obvious things which everybody has on their mind, the fact that, well, Russia kind of begins to turn a special military operation in counterterrorism operation, we need to keep in mind that we do not know what is being obviously briefed or what is being put on the table as the morning briefing of the President of Russian Federation. But what we know so far, apart from yesterday's statements made by Mr. Lavrov on the Future Forum 2015, and we discussed this forum in Moscow, and our friend Larry and his socks, or rather lack thereof, with Colonel Daniel Davis yesterday. You can go and easily find this video. But the point is that what Lavrov stated there essentially puts all kinds of speculations to rest, because he stated the special military operation will continue. And yes, we are open to, peace initiatives, sure, why not? But the all aims, political military aims of this operation will be achieved. And I'm not going to be going anymore. As you saw yourself, the Kiev is burning, Kharkov is burning. There is, the panic. They are now forcefully evacuating number of the villages in Kharkov area. Now we know that Sumy is Russians are not far from Sumy, in fact very close, something about between 10 to 13 kilometers, but probably even less than that. DRGs, Russian DRGs, operate actually very actively in all of those operational axes. And Mr. Lavrov, he stated very clearly that essentially what will happen on the ground will be, well, judicially, how to say it, put into the proper judicial forms, if you wish. And yes, there will be obviously discussion about whatever that buffer zone will be. But now we know that Mr. Zelensky and Mr. Budanov and all those CIA, whatever, MI6 guys, they will be killed. And so this is not to say that they don't try to do something which they are terrorist regime. United States supports terrorism in Ukraine, and especially Europeans, they do support terrorism. The more Russians they kill, especially civilians, like village of Ruskaya Porечная was simply killed, all of it. All men, women, children, old people. So this is NATO war. This is how they fight. And but now they want Alexander Ovechkin, the captain of the Washington Capitals National Hockey League team, to be killed. So that tells you everything you need to know. This is who Wests are. They are terrorism, supporting organizations, so to speak. And these are what their institutions are, from politicians, many of whom do support terrorism. And, what can I say? It's just everything you need to know. The rest of the world will watch this, and they make their own conclusions. But it's not only that. Now we have Mr. Trump coming up again with this delirium. He talks about that, yeah, Russians have helped somewhat during World War II. Obviously, it was the United States which bore the brunt of the defeating Hitler and Axis forces. Yeah, we know. So, and now he comes up with yet another number, which is for some reason 51 million. But again, American politicians and math do not go together. For example, like the same with Solzhenitsyn, who sold the cornucopia of the garbage from the essentially Goebbelsonian propaganda outlet, which is so-called Professor Mr. Kurganov. And yeah, they believe that if you have the population of the country, like 150, 160 million people, which the Soviet Union was at that time, I believe it was something, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that Soviet Union by the start of 1941 had the population slightly under the 180 million, but I think it was between 170 and 180. So if you kill 51 million people, I shouldn't have been here. So I shouldn't have been born. And yeah, so they love to throw those numbers. And of course, yeah, we know that US Army defeated, Hitler and, Manstein at Stalingrad. Kursk battle is one of the proudest, pages of the US Army. And sure, when you look at this, in fact, this was US Army and Western Allies who took Berlin. But yeah, sure. And this is what we elected. Yes, I voted for him, but again, it was between the two evils, so to speak, and or two devils, if you wish. We chose the lesser evil, so to speak. So, and that's what we have. And obviously, I'm not going to be talking about the riots in LA. That's the whole other story. This is not the point of which I was intended to make today. And so let's start with over and over again, we're going to be returning back to how the now counterterrorism operation proceeds. And we have this scandalous story, essentially, that it's, with Israel. Oh, good Lord. Larry Wilkerson already speaking to RT a few days back, he already stated that Mossad is all over the special military operation. Not that it's going to help Israel. They are not what they were being portrayed by, essentially, AIPAC control media as some kind of outstanding military force, which they are not no way near. It's all primarily propaganda and mythology, which was, well, again, as I already stated, it's run. American media can turn a jackass into their, steed. But what can I say? And so Israel denies sending Patriot systems to Ukraine. Well, the Israeli foreign ministry has reportedly denied the country supplied Ukraine with Patriot air defense systems, contradicting comments made by its ambassador to Kyiv. Yes, the Israeli envoy Michael Brodsky told Ukrainian media in an interview on Sunday that US-produced Patriot systems formerly deployed in Israel were now being used by Kyiv's military. He expressed disappointment that development hasn't been widely discussed. Well, I mean, Russian Foreign Ministry and Maria Zakharova obviously reacted immediately, saying that, well, Mr. Brodsky not the first time makes that type of statements. But if you look attentively of how this whole, so to speak, legerdemain has been done, it's very simple. You have the American systems. Yes, Israel has it. Practically everything what Israel has is American-made. Except for supposedly Merkava, which they were proclaiming to be the best tank in the world, which it is not in by a long shot, but what can I say? However, what happened most likely, which is kind of plausible deniability scenario, is that, yeah, because it's American systems used by IDF, they've been old, 30 years old, and they are absolutely ineffective. It's, well, let's be straight to the point, and there's not, it's a junk. I mean, Patriot Pack-3, it's pathetic. It can shoot down the aircraft. I'll give it that to it. But other than that, and so they sent it to the United States for refit, refurbishing, whatever, to be, put in conservation. But then, of course, the United States decides, and gets those 30 Patriots, which were evidently absolutely useless in Israel. They will send them to, Ukraine. And probably that's what happened with the most of them. It doesn't matter. It's not going to change anything. The only thing they can barely support and defend, and again, primarily from the slow flying targets, is of course Kyiv. But it's even Kyiv, as you saw in the beginning, it is all, burning. All those, military industrial plants are goners now. And for people who do not understand, again, what is the industrial and military capability of Russia, I'll give you the number which I spoke about and wrote about, that just yesterday, Russians used 497 geranium UAVs, loitering munitions, if you wish. It means Russians can continue, which they do for the last, several days, and it will continue. It will only increase in a different ways, but it will increase. 500 geraniums a day. Simple as that. Absolutely no problem. It just, that's the way it is. And this is a shocking news, essentially, for all those warmongers from Washington and European Union who still think that they have military and industrial capacity to do anything about it. They do not. And that is just one part of the equation. Of course, the major part of the equation are, of course, ammunition and, of course, missiles. And read my lips. In terms of the missilery as such, as the sector or the field of the arms, which is used in the combat, United States or NATO as a whole, they're not even in the same league. They are not even in the same galaxy, both in quantity, which they cannot produce and they will not be able to manufacture them, and of course quality. I mean, there is simply nothing which can actually change this outcome, because, read my lips again, United States lost the arms race, and the critical sector of the military power where it lost it by knockout is the development of the cruise missiles. Well, what United States has, good old Tomahawk and maybe JASSM. That's about it. The rest of it is all subsonic, useless pretty much against the serious air defense. But what can I say? I was on record and talking about it non-stop. And as you can see yourself, Russians are actually using the KH-22, old missile by design, but obviously updated with the new homing device, and they become, well, they were high precision to start with, but now, as you can see yourself, it is one of the destruction of the platforms in the Black Sea, including this Zmyiny Island, proverbial Zmyiny Island, which yesterday wiped out all but facilities, from air defense to bases for the use of the unmanned sea vehicles, which are provided primarily by British. So that's it. I mean, not good. So, but this is not just what I wanted to talk to you about, because you can obviously read all those tactical and even operational minutiae anyway in the real news, I mean, not establishment news. But we will start with this thing. And this is very interesting. Mr. Kazianis, you can look up his background. He wrote yesterday in National Security Journal. Well, he wrote it not yesterday. It was posted yesterday on National Security Journal. I think he wrote it before, and he actually, this is just the preamble, so to speak, or the introduction to this piece. After that, he kind of references himself, going back to his publication he wrote in 2022, 3 years ago. However, in this introduction, which is today, it's contemporary, essentially, he talks about that NATO would lose a war against Russia. Well, I was on record about this since 2014, when the events in Maidan and the coup and basically destruction of Ukraine forced me to go public with whatever little experience and knowledge I have, to start warning people that, guys, you have no idea what kind of Pandora box you are opening. And so Mr. Harry Kazianis says, yeah, NATO would lose a war against Russia. Over the last few days, I have held several long-form interviews with past and present NATO senior military officials to get to the bottom of one question. Could NATO win a war against Russia? Sadly, the answer I was given were not encouraging. And so he again references his writing from 2022 and the publication of those, or posting, if you wish, of those interviews are coming, evidently. And we will have wait and see who and how he interviewed those NATO officials, former and current. But yes, I am on record. I mean, there's no NATO army, especially US Army, can sustain the casualties which will be inflicted on it if, God forbid, they go and try to fight conventional war with Russia in Europe. In Eastern Europe, Russians are not interested in going and attacking or invading this Western Europe. Why? First, to get the bunch of the freeloaders on Russia's balance, and Russia is doing quite well economically, but then what else can you do with them? I mean, what do you need them for? So they will kill themselves, and that's already happening. So in this case, all this premise, which is utter BS, that Russians somehow are interested in invading Europe, is an absolute ridiculous premise. But This is what it is. NATO cannot win the war. And I was on that for a long time. And then we suddenly have today number of the interesting admissions, and they are not necessarily for traditional Pentagon desire to essentially, squeeze the power of the purse, which sits with the Congress, which is utterly corrupt, for new financing. And it's not about financing. Wars are not won by the volume of money. They are won by system, the system of the state control, which United States simply doesn't have. The United States is not governable, and by the system of the industry and how it all coalesces into the single view, so to speak, of the defense doctrine. And United States defense doctrine has nothing to do with the defense. It's primarily imperialist expeditionary force doctrine against some kind of, third world countries which cannot shoot back, because if United States gets into the shooting war with China or God forbid Russia, in the United States will immediately escalate to the nuclear threshold, because conventionally United States is very weak. It doesn't mean it cannot kill. It can kill, it can wreak the havoc, but it cannot win the war, real war. Well, you cannot win even the police operations of high intensity, but hey, real war, that's a whole other story. And so suddenly we have this thing. Mr. Kane, who is actually the chief of staff, well, the chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff, he talks that. Hear what he talks about. Look at this. This is today, and Washington. The head of the U.S. General Staff, I highlighted it for a reason. The United States doesn't have general staff, and it is incapable of having general staff. But down this text, they finally correctly state his proper title, so that Russia has modernized its Pacific fleet, which poses a threat to U.S. interests in the Pacific region, said the head of the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff, well, the chairman, General John Kane. Russia has modernized its Pacific fleet, especially submarines, becoming a growing threat to interest United States of the United States in the Indo-Pacific region, Kane said in a written statement to the U.S. House Appropriations Committee. Well, it's Appropriations Committee. You need money. Money. They think that you can fight with the those packs of the banknotes and throwing it at Russians, and you somehow can win. Obviously, it's complete delusion. But however, this is the full statement. And as you can see yourself, he talks that in May, the chairman of the Maritime Board of Russia, Nikolai Patrushev, said that the Pacific Fleet is strengthening its combat power and continues to solve the most important tasks to contain military threats to Russian national security in the Asia-Pacific region. Patrushev noted the high tension of the military political situation, as well as the increase in the military activity of NATO, including in the in Asia-Pacific region. So it's very important that we speak about Nikolai Patrushev here. But why it is important? Well, because there was a very serious event which have happened, and it have happened a few days ago. And let's start with this thing. As you can see yourself, yesterday, President Vladimir Putin approved the development strategy of the Russian Navy until 2050. It also approved actually the development strategy of the what is called, well, you would call this Coast Guard, but they're not really Coast Guard of Russia. It's FSB maritime units, naval units, and it also was approved, and it looks at the complete reshaping of the, for example, Coast Guard activity. But let's go to Navy first. And the decision to prepare the strategy was made in July last year at a meeting in the Kremlin. On behalf of the president of the Ministry of Defense prepared its draft, which was then finalized by Maritime Board, taking into account the proposals of federal departments and organizations. So here is what this new strategy is all about. Here are the main points. Such a document was adopted for the first time in modern history. Absolutely true. And essentially the point of this document and the program, once one considers into real Russian economy or into real Russia, which is not the figment of imagination of all kinds pseudo strategists like Sarah Palin or Mr. Trump, for example, they will understand that what is happening is all within the same vein of what was known from the start of the special military operation, when it was stated not only by me, by many people, including those ones which are have very close ties to Russian, for example, General Staff, Ministry of Defense, and they were saying this, that what Gerasimov, Mr. Gerasimov, the chief of the General Staff of Russia, is doing, he is designing the force which will be the best force, fighting force, not well, in history essentially, and it's already achieving this state. So he wants to leave it that before 2050 Russians won't even worry about it. And so we have now, we already know what is happening in terms, for example, of the ground-based systems, air defense, air force, now that Navy's turn. And so Russia's position as one of the world's greatest maritime powers is gradually being restored. Absolutely. Soviet Navy during the Gorshkov time, it was the second navy in the world, and it possessed already at that time the weight of the anti-shipping missile salvo, which, well, no air defense system could actually deal with, including this, you know, famous Aegis and this, obviously, this selection of the missiles, air defense missiles such as SM-2, SM-3, obviously SM-6 as of lately, Sea Sparrows and all that. They are simply not designed to deal with the modern strike capabilities of Russian Navy. And we'll talk about why especially it was spoken by Mr. Kane about Russia's Pacific Fleet. So he talks about the, Mr. Patrushev, that in the document, and here why it is highlighted in yellow. I am on the record. You can quote me. There is no what Russians were doing for the last century. Contains an analysis of the development of the military political situation in the world, options for possible armed conflicts, the potential of the leading naval powers. And here is the issue. United States doesn't do strategy. It never could since the World War II. And as a result, Russians do this strategic forecasting. They obviously describe those real scenarios. They give them the probabilistic assessment. And so when you look at those documents, they are very thorough. And they will be, well, for the most part, achieved. And people have to understand. Oh, I know, I'm forestalling it, because there will be many, all kinds of the trolls and Ukrainian paid, you know, shills and things like that, who will say, oh, but what about Admiral Kuznetsov aircraft carrier? Yeah, what about it? It's getting ready. So the same goes for actually Admiral Nakhimov nuclear cruiser, but we have to understand that the concept and deployment of the naval forces changed dramatically. And when Mr. Kane, the chairman of the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, speaks about, for example, Russia's Pacific Fleet, he has a point. And here is the point, which I was talking about non-stop for the last so many years. Here we have this. Look at this. Pacific Ocean is the largest ocean by far in the world. As you can see yourself, you have a combination of the countries which actually have their, well, how to say it, their own view on this vast expanse, which also, well, not houses, it actually provides the shipping lanes of communications and all kinds of the transport of goods and what have you. And of course, as you understand, we have the choke points there, for example, and like Malacca Strait, and we have all kinds of things happening there. And obviously, United States Navy thought it was its own lake. Well, it's not anymore, and it hasn't been for a long time. And when Mr. Kane talks about Pacific Fleet, Russian Pacific Fleet, well, what can I say? Let's take a look what we have in terms of the Pacific Fleet, in terms of the just forces there. For example, if you take a look at surface fleets. And these are major combatants. These are not all kinds of other ships which are lower rank. Usually they're below second rank. They are third rank ships, such as small anti-submarine warfare ships, such as the missile carrying boats. They're not boats, they're small ships, but yeah. But as you can see yourself, among those things, well, look at this. We have why I highlighted these two ships. Apart from WWII carries good old Vulcans and the 1,000-kilometer range anti-shipping missiles, but no, Marshal Shaposhnikov and Gremyashi, well, which is called the corvette, but well, it's not really corvette by its fire, by its power. It can sink actually aircraft carrier battle group. They are all carriers of 3 M22 Zircon. You can take a look, obviously, at Gremyashi, which is, as you can see yourself, it's a pretty advanced machine. It has the elements of the Parliamentary Dude Air Defense Complex. Then we have the, obviously, Marshal Shaposhnikov, which have been completely overhauled. It's essentially a new ship. It's not what it used to be, large anti-submarine warfare ship. It is now full-blown strike package, including, as you can see yourself on this elevated position, bunch of the cruise missiles. Most of them are, of course, Onyx and 15-kilometer range hypersonic Zircon. Obviously, if you go and listen and read all kinds of the fairy tales from Pentagon and Ukraine or whatever is left of it, obviously we know that, oh yeah, you know, they shoot down those Kinzhals and other hypersonic targets so easily. No problem. Just, you know, just give us the salvo of hypersonic missiles, we'll shoot them down. So, but yeah, it tells you everything you need to know about professional level of those people who, for example, as Mr. Lavrov stated, because Russia doesn't know how Mr. Trump is being informed and by who. Obviously by military amateurs, such as Kellogg, for example. And they tell him fairy tales, and that is why he acts like he lives in the fairy tale. But if you go further, and this is where it all becomes very interesting, and after you saw yourself The Expanse, here are the list of the subs of the Pacific Fleet. As you can see yourself, now Pacific Fleet essentially deploys active 5 Barret class state-of-the-art strategic missile submarines. Each of them, which carries Bulava, they are capable also the carrying of the hypersonic maneuvering blocks on a very long range. And yeah, you just cannot do anything about it if, God forbids, you know, what Russians decide to go nuclear after the United States goes nuclear. Russia is not going to go nuclear. Then, of course, you have the good old Oscars. You already have 2, it's from the Wikipedia, but actually it's already 3 Yasin-class state-of-the-art SSGNs, carriers of the Onyx and Zircon. Of course, you have now the Belgorod, this Oscar II class variant. This is a horrifying submarine. Why? Because it is the carrier of the Poseidon, well, they call it torpedo, and essentially these are robots, and those robots are capable of anything, especially when you have the speed of 100 knots, which is, well, essentially almost 200 kilometers per hour. So, and 100 knots is about, yeah, what can I say? I mean, it's a lot. 160, well, no, it's almost 200 miles per hour. And, well, you will correct me. I'm not now in the position to completely give you the precise number, but that's pretty much it. It's this sports car which travels below 1 kilometer. We don't know even the depth to which it moves. So you will not necessarily even hear it, no matter how you try. And that thing, even in the conventional warhead, can easily reach the carrier battle group and explode underneath the bottom of the nuclear-powered carrier. And that will be it for the carrier, because it will have the bottom torn apart, and it will sink very fast, by the way. Or, of course, it can carry nuclear weapon, nuclear warhead, and it also, this is the weapon which allegedly, I don't know, don't ask me, but people say, including on the NATO side, that this thing can just approach the, you know, shore and explode. And then you will have the tsunami. Some people say as high as 300 meters. Others say that it's probably 100 meters. doesn't matter, it will be terrifying. And then you have all kinds of the contamination which cannot be, which will not go away really fast, like it happened relatively fast in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. No, that thing will be staying for decades. And because I live near Seattle, I have my really vested interest to have a peaceful resolution pretty much for everything, because I do not want to wake up one day and see this wall of water coming after this nuclear explosion and then the whole hell breaking loose. But this is the weapon which Russians have. And it's Belgorod, it's together with this Yasin-class submarines, they are, what can I say? Yeah, this is, I mean, these are deadly weapons. And United States Navy doesn't have anything against them, well, for a simple reason, because unlike Russians who go about them, to create their doctrines, they create their forecasts, and they try to fit into proper resources, marry proper resources with technological development of the new weapon systems, United States Navy just builds carriers. Obsolete system which is not survivable in the modern war, but it is also the trigger which will make United States go nuclear, because they cannot defend carrier battle groups. But if you listen attentively to the deposition of Mr. late Hyman Rickover, Admiral Hyman Rickover, in 1980, to the deposition to the subcommittee on the Armed Services Committee of Senate, he stated that carriers already then, they were not survivable. They will just simply be gone in first 24 hours of war. Now it's absolutely guaranteed and nothing could be done. There is not a single air defense, it's now, which is essentially laughing stock of Russians, for example. I know it hurts many people, but that's what it is. They laugh openly at air defense systems which United States has developed. None of them properly work. And that's why Mr. Kane, he has this concern about Russia's Pacific Fleet, especially when you consider that also I showed you only the nuclear subs. But guess what? We have the whole thing, the class of submarines, which United States simply does not have. These are excellent, diesel electric submarines. 6 of them, I underlined or highlighted here only 4, but 6 of them of the improved Kilo class, Project 636, capable of carrying caliber also missiles. And then you have the new air-independent propulsion Lada class submarines being built now, and they will be arriving to Pacific Fleet. So, and when you put together this thing together, yeah, it's a serious threat if you consider that Russia, for some reason, wants to attack the United States. Russia does not. But United States would love to attack Russia or China or what have you, because it has the warmongers who do not understand what real war is, modern war in the 21st century, and they still think that they are in this game. They are not. US Navy, for all its magnificent, glorious, courageous history and performance, especially in the World War II and after World War II. It was the largest navy by far and most powerful navy by far until 1980s. But before that, yeah, it was a navy which has to be preserved. This memory, it has glory, will be enshrined in those monuments and museums, such as, for example, Iowa class battleships, the most beautiful, gorgeous artillery ships, gunnery ships ever. So yeah, that's understandable. But we're looking into and talking about 2025, and here. Sorry guys, I have to break, I have to rain on your parade. US Navy, the same as the US Army, is the TOE, Table of Organization of Equipment, which is stuck in 1990s. This is 2025, and this is not survivable Navy in case of, God forbids, major conflict, which Russians do not want to do, actually Chinese do not want to do. United States wants to do, because it's the last, so to speak, the swan song of the, well, dying empire. And we have to deal with this. And that is why Russians produce this document. I will be talking about this document once it becomes publicly available, and I will talk about it in detail. But this is what I wanted to tell you today, guys. And as always, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel. And those who can afford, please support me on Patreon or buy me a coffee too. And I would really appreciate this. So this is it for today, guys. And have the nice rest of this week, and I'll talk to you later. Bye bye.